I'm writing a fantasy book. Actually, a whole series, maybe multiple. Definitely chaos. And before you roll your eyes like, oh, another booktuber or book creator writing a book, let me guess, it's spicy romantasy where nothing happens except eye contact and inner monologues. This isn't going to be your standard. I read a lot of fantasy, so now I guess I'll write one too moment. No shade to people doing that, but let's be honest, half of book talk is in their Wattpad era right now. And it shows. We've got romantasy overload. We've got sad boy villains in leather pants. We've got 700 fake courts doing nothing except breathing heavily near each other and calling it plot. Nope, that's not what we're doing here. And from my commentary, you guys should have expected that. I am writing faith rooted fantasy. And it's going to be messy, chaotic, layered, spiritual, and probably a little unhinged. Just like me. It's gonna be stories that blend wonder, war, spiritual battles, prophecies, chosen ones who don't want the job, demons that don't play fair, end times energy, dystopian chaos, but also grace, hope, truth, and actual spiritual depth. And God, yeah, he's real in this world, but so is free will, so is doubt, so is struggle. So, yes, there will be battles, there will be powers, there will be messy chosen ones who barely know what they're doing, but there will also be layers, meaning, purpose. This is gonna be fantasy with soul, not sanitized, not sugar coated, but also not hopeless. We're talking holy chaos. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but that's exactly what I'm going to be calling it. Because the world doesn't need more empty spectacle. I believe it needs stories that matter. So let's talk about it. Why I'm writing, what to expect, and why your favorite chaotic booktuber is about to give the fantasy genre a holy plot twist. First and foremost, I want us to be real. Fantasy right now, a lot of times it's giving empty calories. Don't get me wrong, I love a fun, dramatic, sword swinging romantasy moment. I love a magical world. I will happily read about dragons, rebellions, and girls in thigh high boots fighting. I love it. But a lot of times I'm reading, and I even tell you guys, a lot of times I read these books and I'm thinking, where's the depth? Half the fantasy I see today is either I'm in love with my trauma but make it magical. Here's another morally gray sad boy who needs therapy, but we're gonna kiss him anyway. Or let's invent new words for bread and do nothing else for 700 pages. And then there's the other side, the clean fantasy, I guess you could call it, that's so sanitized it feels like we're eating unseasoned rice. Like, okay, there's no spice, but there's also no life. So, where's the middle ground? Where's the fantasy that deals with darkness but also points to light? Where's the chaos and the care, the demons and the deliverance, the spiritual battles and the sword fights? C.S. Lewis didn't just write about talking lions because it was cute. He wrote about courage, sacrifice, good and evil, pride, power, redemption, the heavy stuff. But he made it magical, fun, adventurous. He gave us Narnia, where kids are fighting witches and kings, but also learning about grace. Then you've got Frank Peretti, who said, let's rip the veil off spiritual warfare and show you what's actually happening behind the scenes. This present darkness had people side-eyeing their neighbors like, wait, is this PTA meeting actually a demonic infiltration? Like, Peretti made faith thrilling. He made angels and demons feel real. That's the tradition I'm trying to step into. Not copying them, of course, but standing on the shoulders of giants who already proved that faith-based fantasy isn't boring. It's necessary. Because, let's be honest, fantasy right now, a lot of times, is empty. We've got spectacle, we've got spice, we've got vibes, but where are the books that wrestle with the soul? Where are the stories that admit the world is broken but still believe in restoration? Where are the heroes who aren't just fighting for a crown but for truth? That's what faith-rooted fantasy is for me. It's not preachy, don't get me wrong. It's not church fan fiction. It's stories that don't leave the soul out of the story. Because guess what? Spiritual reality exists, and I want to bring that to life in my books. But let me clarify for the people in the back who are already panicking. This is not going to be your grandma's inspirational allegory. We're not doing the VeggieTales version of fantasy, okay? Faith rooted doesn't mean preachy, like I said. This isn't a sermon in disguise. I'm not handing you a tract at the end of every chapter. What I'm writing is spiritual reality baked into the plot, not an add on, not an allegory, just truth woven into the world. At least that's what I'm attempting to do. Okay. And what that means is that there will be demons, but they're not cartoon villains. They're manipulative, messy, subtle, charming when they need to be, terrifying when they don't, just like in real life, because spiritual warfare isn't aesthetic, it's brutal. Beyond that, there's also going to be chosen ones who are unprepared, unwilling, and definitely a little petty. We have to be honest. So, yes, there are prophecies and chosen ones, but they're confusing, incomplete, messy, just like real callings in life. Nobody hands you a Google Doc from heaven with step-by-step instructions on how to live your life and how to move in purpose, how to accomplish your calling. It's hard, and I want to show that. So I want you to think dystopia, but layered, you know? And of course, with fantasy, and you guys know me, there's gonna be battles, but there's gonna be both physical and spiritual battles, you know? There's spiritual warfare, but it's not just sword fights in the sky that people can't see. It's mind games, doubt, compromise, betrayal, the battle for the soul, not just a kingdom. That's what I want to portray, you know? And you guys know when I do my book reviews, one thing that I always rave about when a book has it is multiple points of view. You guys know I love multiple POVs because one perspective is never enough to capture the full truth. Not to me anyway. So that's what I want to encompass. You know, that's what I want to show. That's what I want to have in my books. Maybe not all, but in some, or at least one. Beyond that, and I think this is really, really important, there's real people, you know, not cardboard cutouts, not perfect saints. People like me, you know, people like you. Messy, chaotic, sometimes making the wrong choice, but still walking toward grace. And yes, there's faith, but not the polished Sunday school version. It's people questioning God, wrestling with purpose, falling down, and getting back up again because they're too stubborn to quit. And guess what? There's also fun. Like there's adventure, there's journeying, there's banter, there's chaos. There's this is so messy, but I'm rooting for you anyway, energy. Because life is like that. When I say faith rooted, I mean stories where God exists, but so does free will, like I said. Stories where people doubt, question, fall, fail, and get back up again and again and again. Because the point is not perfection, it's redemption. And again, this is what I want to show in the stories that I tell. Honestly, it's a lot of chaos writing it because I'm struggling to put all of this into words and capture all of this, but this is what I'm striving for, and this is what, you know, I'm pushing to write, you know? Because the thing is, the current fantasy market, it's crowded, but at the same time it's somehow hollow. We've got these endless series about magical girlies running through the forest and corsets, chasing emotionally unavailable fae men who haven't paid taxes in 700 years. You know, all these gray soft boys doing war crimes but getting redeemed because they look sad in chapter 4, as I said. You know, the entire dystopian trilogies where the plot is basically the monarchy is bad and that's where we end. And the solution is always, oh, let's rebel and overthrow the monarchy, but nobody has a follow-up plan, you know? And listen, I read those too. I love some of them. But sometimes you close the book and feel, yeah, empty. Like, cool, we had a hot prince and a rebellion, but what did we actually say? Did we address good versus evil? Did we deal with the soul? Did we ask what happens after the kingdom falls? Did we ask who we are becoming in the process? You know? And you're just like, well, if we didn't do that, what were we doing? And yes, we can have fun, and books are made for so many things, a lot of times for fun and for enjoyment. But it's so good when you can get more from it, when you can ask, okay, what are we building from this? There's so little fantasy that actually tackles that actually tackles the soul. So I want my stories to make you gasp at the battle scenes, but also sit quietly at 3 a.m. thinking about so much about grace and faith and struggle and redemption. I want books that say, yes, evil exists, but so does hope, so does love. Yes, the world is breaking, but restoration is possible. And I want to write characters who don't have to choose between faith or fight. They can do both, They can wrestle with belief while they're wielding a sword. They can question God and still call on him when the sky falls, because that's real life, isn't it? We're all in some kind of battle, internal, external, spiritual, emotional, mental. Especially nowadays, you find so many people are battling, a secret battle internally, the spiritual battle, the mental battle with so many people struggling with their mental health, the emotional battle with so many people dealing with past traumas. We see so many internal battles, and I want to tackle that. I want to write that. I want to introduce that into fantasy in a very, very raw but helpful way, And yeah, it's exciting, but like I said, like so hard. But yeah, like that's what I want you to like expect from my fantasy books. But like, yeah, let's go a bit more into the meat of it, what I'm actually writing, what's the vibe. And like I already mentioned, I want you to expect, the demons, but not the cartoon villains, I want like real spiritual evil, the demons are insidious. They offer you the thing you want most and smile while they ruin your life, I want prophecies, but like messy ones, no clear instructions, no golden child, chosen one. I love the chosen one trope, but let's actually be a bit more realistic. I want flawed people trying to figure out their calling while the world around them burns and they're trying to save that, I want battles that aren't just for aesthetics, not just sword clashes, because sword clashes are fun, but minds and hearts at war, the kind of battles you fight when no one's looking, because so many of us are fighting that quiet battle. When people fight, it matters. It costs something. War is not a TikTok thirst trap, babes, so I want to reflect that. And as someone who loves dystopian books, I feel like, that was really the era that really had me looking at literature like, ooh, fun. So I want to like have this dystopian world with spiritual stakes. Maybe we're nearing end times. Maybe the apocalypse isn't coming. It's already here and we just didn't notice, but it's coming to blows and we have to figure out how to deal with it, I want that type of like big bang type of vibe, Of course, some multiple POVs. I don't think I can incorporate that into every book, but we'll see about that. I'm a maximalist. I'm writing my stories and I'm just like, Shirley, even you are getting confused with some of these characters' personalities. Look at your notes, look at your notes, look at your notes. And not wanting, readers to be like, wait, who is that again? Like, what did they do? What is their personality? Like, what's their role? Like, it's really hard bringing it all together, but I just think the best stories aren't told from one angle, I'm giving you the hero, the doubter, the betrayer, the prophet, the sidekick who should have been the main character but wasn't, I want you to get all of it. And yeah, I want you to have fun, I want you to read and go through messy journeys that aren't wrapped up with a bow, because it so rarely is. Life isn't a clean arc where everyone learns a neat lesson and ties it with a bow, okay? Some people fail, some people fall, some people get back up anyway, and some people don't, So that's what to expect, basically expect me, my humor, my chaos, my shade, my wisdom, my faith, of course, it's gonna be chaotic but wise, messy, but meaningful, funny, because I do think I have, humor, but also firm. It's gonna be a book that's caring, but also no nonsense, because I can joke around with you guys, as you see, but I have boundaries. I do. So I think if you like how I rant on BookTube, imagine that energy, but with world building and demons and dystopia. Like, that's the vibe. Again, at least that's what I'm attempting. That's definitely what I'm attempting. And some of you might be like, ooh, this looks like a lot. You're taking on a lot. And you already do a bit. So, why? And genuinely, like I said, the world, I think, is dark right now in so many spaces. It can be in your personal life, it can be in the workspace, it can just be, as we're looking at politics, it can be whatever, but it's so dark right now. We're genuinely living in dystopia as it is. Like, it's not like it's dystopia light, to be honest. People are tired, burnt out. So many people are numb. They're scrolling doom feeds until their brains rot. And when they look for stories to escape into, what do they find? A lot of times they find more darkness or like fake light nonsense that doesn't address reality. So I don't want to really escape the world, even though it's fantasy. I want to write stories that equip people to live in it, if that makes sense. To fight well, to love well, to believe in restoration while still being honest about how messy the battle is. Because that, I think, is the key to actually taking on this world as we see it and as we're in it. To me, faith-rooted fantasy, it says, yes, the world is messy. Yes, evil exists, but hope isn't fake. It's just hard. And you will have to fight for it, but you don't have to fight it alone. You guys know I do love my found family. So I will probably be incorporating that in my books as well. But yeah, you don't have to do it alone. I'm genuinely writing this, and not just this, but I write and I enjoy writing because imagination is how we cast vision for the real world. If all our stories are about trauma with no healing, about power with no purpose, about war with no aftercare, we're building a culture that forgets how to hope. I think we need faith-rooted fantasy now more than ever because the lines between fantasy and reality, though we don't have dragons, it is blurring, I believe. And if we're not intentional, I think we'll get swept into stories that break us instead of build us. I think we're in this age where a lot of people are glamorizing trauma to the point that they don't even realize how much it's hurting them. And I'm just like, ooh, we have to get in there and pull people out of the darkness before they get in too deep. You can have fun 100% with books. You guys see the books I recommend to you, and I'm always having fun with them. But don't get lost in darkness is what I want to say with my book. I'm writing because Lewis and Peretti, they showed us the blueprint. And now I think it's time for the next chapter, for modern readers, for messy people, for people who love fantasy and still believe. So yeah, I'm writing fantasy, but honestly, it's not for clicks, it's not for trends, it's not to fit into the book talk to author pipeline of phase and morally gray boyfriends. No, I'm writing because I believe the world needs stories with soul again, more of them anyway, because there are a lot of stories with soul, don't get it twisted, but I want to contribute to that, contribute to creating stories that deal with demons and destiny and despair, but still remind you that at the end of the day, light wins. Stories that don't sanitize the battle that you're going through individually, collectively, whatever, but it doesn't glorify the darkness either. This is going to be real life in fantasy form. The demons are real, the battle is real, the chosen ones are messy, the prophets get ignored, the world feels like it's ending, but love still matters and truth still wins. That's what we're doing. So yeah, my faith-rooted fantasy is something that I believe someone has to do because yeah, someone needs to write about spiritual warfare without it turning into a sermon. Someone needs to write chosen ones who are messy but still chosen. Yeah, someone needs to tell the truth, but in a way that's still fun, still chaotic, still real. So if you've been looking for that, I mean, you found it, or you're gonna find it when I finally finish pinning some of these things down. It's gonna be chaotic, but it's gonna be true. And if that's the kind of story you've been waiting for, then buckle up because we're coming to you. I hope soon. If you write, like, it's not an easy journey. Like, writing character backgrounds and writing plots and stories for each characters and bringing it together, world building, even if we're having a bit of the real world in there, descriptions, oh my goodness, making sure that there aren't any plot holes, oh goodness, it's a lot, making sure that it even sounds good, making sure that, you know, the line by line writing is good, because, you know, the way I criticize line by line writing, let me not be someone who then writes something crappy. You know, it's a lot, but I'm genuinely excited, and I'm very excited to finally like genuinely be putting it out there boldly. I think I've always like had videos where I like say it quietly, like, yeah, you know, I do write, I have stories, maybe I'll eventually publish, and then kind of like brush it to the side. But this is, I think, one of the very first times I'm like boldly stating it and standing 10 toes down on what I'm saying and letting you people know what's to come, because you guys are my community. I love you guys. You guys have always supported me. And I'm just like, yeah, let the community know what you're doing, because I'm always telling you guys, yeah, guys, there's a lot going on. Beyond writing books, there's actually a lot more going on even behind that. That I'm working on, but this is part of the, yeah, there's a lot going on, and even making these videos are a lot. But I still love my community, and I still love to do these videos and interact in ways, in whichever ways I can, and obviously see your comments. But yeah, that is me, your future faith-based, fate-rooted fantasy writer. Yeah, drop a comment if you're ready for this kind of story, you know. And yeah, tell me your favorite chaotic chosen one trope. Maybe I can, yeah, I can look into it. Or just scream in the comments, because this is about, you know, being real. And if that bee is getting a bit wild, then yeah. So that is me. That's the plan. To be sure to like, comment, you know, share, subscribe if you haven't. Or don't. You don't have to. I'll still be writing. And to the demons out there, yeah, you should probably start shaking, because I'm about to come for you. Okay? And it's gonna be fun. But yeah, until next time, guys. Bye.